see that. Get out of the way. Get out of here.
No, don't adjust your screen. You're looking at it right. This is the Nintendo Puzzle Collection, and it never saw the light of the American or European shores.
Now really, I have no idea why this didn't come to America. There's usually about a reason behind it, either that the company doesn't think it'll sell, there's not enough money behind it, or just similar reasons like that. But it's extremely rare for a Mario game to not come to America. There's hardly been any in the past at all to not make it to America. Mario sells. Classic puzzle games like Dr. Mario and Yoshi's Cookie sell. So I have no idea why this didn't come over here. It just doesn't make any sense. Another strange thing to note is the packaging for Japanese GameCube games. Now, some either love this or hate it. Some claim it was to conserve plastic or whatever other resources. I myself am not particular about it, and that's mainly because I like the DVD-ish packaging so that it easily fits with everything else of the American and European. But here's in comparison. It actually is a lot smaller, which is probably why another reason why a lot of people like it. But, you know, here's your average American packaging with 2 discs and a spot for the memory card and, of course, your instruction booklet here. And then the Japanese one, interesting enough, slides open like this. And then you have the packaging where the disc goes here, the memory card goes here, and the instruction booklet, which is actually kind of protected a little better with this. Now, this packaging might actually look familiar to some people because the Game Boy Player was packaged the same way, as an interesting note. But you also have, which is very common in Japanese packaging, is actually you have the title here in English, Nintendo Puzzle Collection, and then on the other side you have it in Japanese. This game was actually also packaged slightly differently because not only did it come with the game, but it also came with a GameCube to Game Boy Advance cord, which you could use to play the games on here on your Game Boy Advance with friends. But we'll get into that in a little bit.
For now, let's take a look at our menu screen. The screen is very simple to understand. It's just broken up into 4 squares and you can choose whichever game that you want to play. There's Yoshi's Cookie, Dr. Mario, and Panel to Pawn. There's also the 4th square, which will take you to a screen where you can hook up your Game Boy Advance to the GameCube and play the original versions of each 3 game that it's on here. So we'll get to all this later, but for right now, let's look to Yoshi's Cookie, because Yoshi's Cookie is awesome. You can tell immediately that this game is an obvious upgrade from its Nintendo and Super Nintendo counterparts just by the opening sequence and the awesome remake of the main theme that we all know and love. So let's click start and what the hell? I swear to you, my game is not a hack. And in fact, the other 2 games do not seem to have this weird problem whatsoever. And I know what causes this. This weird text problem is usually caused from emulators in the computer on being unable to read the text packaging. Which, you might say it might be because the Wii is American, but that doesn't make too much sense to me, and I have never, in all my days of importing, have seen this before, and it makes no sense why it would do this on Yoshi's Cookie, but not the other 2. So, if anyone knows, I'm asking, what's causing this? Well, anyway, let's just move on. The menu is very basic. It's got your options, your tutorial, your versus mode, and story mode, which you can actually save your place in, a major upgrade from the original. And the story has been upgraded to have some form of plot, and even involves Bowser in the storyline. I haven't gotten that far, but you can assume it's your basic defeat Bowser, get the cookies, by defeating him in some puzzle. There's just one major thing that is missing in this that was in the Super Nintendo version. Now, I should note that I have no idea if this minigame was actually in the original NES version because I always played the Super Nintendo, which I think is very strange that whenever people mention Yoshi's Cookie, they mention the NES version, when the Super Nintendo version was a massive upgrade. Even the Nintendo Puzzle Collection, when you go to the Game Boy Advance section, it gives you the option to play the NES version and not the Super NES version. The Super NES version had a mini game which I thought was the best part of the game, where you had to get rid of all the cookies on screen in a certain amount of moves. And I don't understand why it's not on here. And the only thing I can think of is that it's a remake of the NES version, and that didn't have that on there. It needs to be. This was the best part of Yoshi's Cookie. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you never played it, emulate that or get Yoshi's Cookie on the Super Nintendo. It is so freaking addicting and gets so challenging. Well, with that disappointment out of the way, let's move on to Dr. Mario. I will admit, even though I played the NES version as a kid, I was absolutely terrible at it. But I digress. Let's talk about the menus. The menu is a mess. For those who cannot read Japanese, I had no idea where I was going, what I was doing. I think I found save scores at one point. I found verses, and I found story mode, and I found a tutorial on options. But there are just so many menus to click on and to go back on that I really had no idea what I was doing or where I was going. So for this part of the game, if you're playing, I would just stick to either verses or the main game and don't explore anywhere else. The game itself is classic Dr. Mario. Not a lot to talk about here, but good wholesome puzzle fun. Now for the last one that I'm sure most of you are pretty curious about, Panel de Pon. It might actually look a little more familiar to you guys than you think. Do you recognize it yet? Just give it a minute, you'll see. Yep, that's right. This game is Tetris Attack. For whatever reason, Panel de Pon was never brought to America. Maybe they thought it was too cutesy? I really couldn't explain to you. So they brought it over and used Yoshi's, which kind of just debunks my whole argument of it being too cutesy. Whatever the reason for changing over the original Panel de Pon and adding Yoshi's, America never really saw Panel de Pon, which became Puzzle League in America, until 2000 with Pokemon Puzzle League, and then again with the Puzzle Challenge. With then eventually in the Game Boy Advance area, and DS did get its own title as the Puzzle League Express and the Planet Puzzle League. So how is the original compared to the later ones that eventually made it to US shores? Well, it's cute, it's happy, and it is awesome. There's an interesting story going on that seems far more compelling than Bowser stealing cookies or viruses attacking. It actually seems like you're trying to save the world. In fact, at the end, it looks like you're even supposed to defeat God. Now, how awesome is that? Even if you don't want to play story mode, there's still a lot of other options to have, as well as versus or playing against the computer. There's even an awesome 3D mode, and I would recommend that for the hardcore puzzle players. And if that isn't challenging enough, there's even a level creator where you can make your own level to mess around with. You can even save it and make more than one, and have competitions against your constructed levels. Overall, I think Panel de Pon is the best puzzle game on the Nintendo Puzzle Collection, which makes it even more disappointing and annoying that it didn't come to America in the first place. Well, 3 games down, there's just one section left, and probably the most interesting of them all, and that's the Game Boy Advance.
Now you're probably thinking to yourself, whoa, this looks awesome. I can hook up my Game Boy Advance to my GameCube and download the original versions of the game onto here and play them with my friends or anywhere I want to go? Whoa, this looks way too freaking awesome. Let's check this out. Certainly seems really cool at first. You just hook up the Game Boy Advance, select the game that you want, and it downloads it onto the system. But here's the problem. As soon as you unplug your Game Boy Advance from the GameCube or turn the system off, it no longer recognizes the game. So you can't actually go anywhere with it, and so you're just stuck to a small cord connected to the GameCube playing with other friends. But why would you even bother doing that when the Nintendo Puzzle Collection has such great versions of the game that you're playing right now? There's no point to it. So this entire section right here, while seemingly cool, ends up being just a big disappointment. And that's pretty much it. There's not much else to say. I mean, it's an awesome game. It's got great remakes of all the puzzle games that we love. But is it really worth shelling out anywhere from $20 to $50 to own this game? Well, yes and no. See, it really is a great and awesome game that I would suggest anyone play if they love any of these puzzle games, they love puzzle games in general. And the GameCube is also very easy to import on. But to shell out so much on this, I would make sure that there are enough games that you personally want to import on the GameCube. Which, really, honestly, there isn't a lot of games worth it. I think I've gone through all the lists and I've only found like maybe 5 games worth importing on the GameCube. So if you're really, really curious and you really love puzzle games, I would suggest this for you. If you're just, not sure, you're not even sure you want to deal with importing on GameCube in the first place, then maybe not. Maybe you might just want to emulate it or just stick to the classics that did make it over here on the Super Nintendo and NES. Or play the newer versions of Puzzle League, like Pokemon Puzzle League or Planet Puzzle League or anything like that. This game is really fun. It's fun to play with friends. It's, except for a few strange menu things, it's really easy to get around. And overall, I recommend it to you if you think you have the time to import. I'm Meru-Sama, and I'll see you whenever I get around to doing this again. Very good. That was some good acting, huh? There you go. There you go. Good boy. That one.